Hello, football fans. So I made a video like 4 weeks ago for my NFL predictions, and obviously some stuff has changed since then. Obviously, one of the best players in football just abruptly retired, which changes a lot of things because I believe I had his team in the playoffs. That changes a lot for me, so I'm going to do the whole thing over. There's only like a week or 6 days now until the season starts, so really, how much can change? I hope this is the final one I can do. This is it. This is probably the last prediction one I'm doing. So let's roll with it. Let's see what I came up with. I changed some things. I've changed my mind about certain teams. Hope you guys enjoy, and let's get into it. So we will start with the AFC East, and the recent news of the Patriots, who I have first at 11-5, is that their center David Anderson has some blood clot issues. So I hope he gets that resolved. Hope he's okay. Not sure if he's going to play this year. I mean, stuff could change about that obviously, but right now, not looking good for him. The Patriots made 2 trades for offensive linemen for depth reasons. So, I mean, I'm sure they'll be fine. It's the Patriots. They make up for everything. Dante Scarnecchia is one of the best line coaches in football. They'll be fine. They added Michael Bennett on the defensive line, so that helps, of course. They should have a top half defense and top half offense in the league. Best coaching staff in the league, probably. Sony Michel looked great in the preseason as well. There's always concerns with his knees and stuff like that, but in the preseason, looked fantastic. Josh Gordon reinstated. They still have Tom Brady, Bill Belichick. What else do you need? The other 3 teams in this division are pretty young, or very young, I should say, and I don't expect them to make a jump right now. I think the Patriots at least own this division for 2019. As we get into the Jets at 8-8, I like the Jets this year. I think Sam Darnold is going to make a pretty big jump from year 1 to year 2. Darnold had a pretty decent rookie season, made some mistakes, but I think in the preseason this year he's looked phenomenal. He's going to have a really nice year. They did lose Avery Williamson to a torn ACL in the preseason. That sucks at linebacker. That's a big loss for them. They added pieces on their offense, a lot of pieces. Jamison Crowder, Le'Veon Bell, Kalichi Osemele, Ty Montgomery. They get Quincy Enunwa back, who missed a lot of games last year. Their O-line should be average, but it has potential. There's a lot of people on this offensive line that have something to prove. Osemele is one of them. Had a nice preseason in the game he played against the Giants, I remember. I think it was like 1 drive, but still, he had a nice drive. Jamal Adams can prove he's one of the best safeties in football this year. He's definitely on the way. They added C.J. Mosley. They added Quinnen Williams in the draft. Quinnen Williams is, by some people said to be one of the best players in this draft, so we'll see. And I like Adam Gase. I mean, I think he overachieved for the roster he had in Miami. I mean, a lot of Jets fans did not like the Gase signing, but what was the guy supposed to do? We had Jay Cutler, Ryan Tannehill, Matt Moore. What was the guy supposed to do? He went 23-25, even made the playoffs one year. I think he did a pretty good job, and I think Jets fans will change their mind about Adam Gase when the season's over. On to the Bills at 7-9. I like Josh Allen. He's very fun to watch. So how much does Josh Allen develop? That's the big question for this team. Who's their running back? They have LaShawn McCoy, Frank Gore, Devin Singletary, the 3rd-round rookie. I think TJ Yeldon's thrown in there somewhere. He'll probably get cut by the time this season comes out. They added wide receivers in free agency, Cole Beasley, John Brown, Andre Roberts. That'll help for Josh Allen's development. Their O-line should be decent. They added Mitch Morse at center. They drafted Cody Ford out of Oklahoma, who I liked, so that's a pretty nice move for their offensive line. They had a great defense last year, and it should be good again. They added Ed Oliver in the draft, who was phenomenal. Watched a lot of his tape because I wanted my Giants to take him, so Ed Oliver should be a beast. Lastly, the Dolphins at 5-11. There are reports about them trading players right now. There were reports about Laramie Tunsil getting traded, and that the whole team would go crazy about it or something. It was a very weird report, but I don't think they're going to trade Tunsil. I doubt it. They are starting Ryan Fitzpatrick over Josh Rosen to start the season. I think Rosen will get a shot at some point this year. That would make the most sense. Who steps up at running back and receiver is a big question for them. Kenyon Drake's already in a walking boot. I'm not sure what his status is at this moment, but he was in a walking boot like last week. They have Kalen Ballage at running back, who is athletic, but I really don't know if he knows how to play at a running back position or not. He kind of just seems like an athletic guy who isn't really a great running back technique-wise. Wide receiver, I like Albert Wilson. I hope he's healthy this year. I don't know what his status is right now. Devontae Parker, I mean, this is probably it for him. He needs to prove something this year. They have Kenny Stills. I mean, Mike Gesicki at tight end could definitely make a big leap from year 1 to year 2. Their offensive line is pretty garbage outside of Tunsil. I think PFF has their offensive line ranked 32nd in the league, so not good for them. Outside of Xavier Howard, there's nobody great on this defense, and they did add Christian Wilkins in the draft, and honestly, they might have the number 1 pick next year in next April. So we'll see. I mean, I'm not expecting much from the Dolphins. I love Josh Rosen. I hope he plays a lot this year and proves a lot of haters wrong because I like Rosen, but we'll see. On to the AFC North, and I have the Ravens at 10-6, first place. Does Lamar Jackson take that next step? Lamar Jackson should improve as a passer this year. I think he will improve, and his rushing numbers were insane last year. If you take his rushing numbers in his starts last year and put them over 16 games, he would have had 1,270 rushing yards and 9 touchdowns. Not sustainable, but still, it just shows you how much of a dual threat this guy is. They added Mark Ingram and rookie Justice Hill to the running game. Mark Ingram spent a lot of time with the Saints, former Heisman winner, I believe. Had a really nice year 2 years ago, Mark Ingram, but last year I think was suspended. Still had a pretty decent year, but I think he'll thrive in this offense. Added wide receiver Marquise Brown in the draft. I believe he played in the last preseason game or week 3 preseason for the Ravens, so he should be okay. Tight end Mark Andrews is a big play waiting to happen, kind of like a poor man George Kittle in a way. I mean, I don't know how else to compare him. I'm not going to call him George Kittle exactly, but a poor man's George Kittle is a fine comparison for him. They added safety Earl Thomas, who I still think has a lot to offer. I understand he's been around for a while. He's in his 30s now, or lower 30s, but I think he still has a lot left in the tank. They brought in Eric Weddle in his lower 30s, and he gave the Ravens like 3 or 4 really good years. So they did lose C.J. Mosley. They lost Eric Weddle, as I said, Zadarius Smith, and Terrell Suggs. So a lot of that front 7 took a hit, but I do like their secondary a lot. They still have Tony Jefferson, Marlon Humphrey, Jimmy Smith, Brandon Carr, and of course Earl Thomas, as I mentioned. So their defense ranked 2nd in the NFL in points per game last year allowed. So, they do have a great coach in John Harbaugh. And I just think because Lamar Jackson will take that next step, I think a lot of people think Lamar Jackson's trash. I made a video about that if you guys watched. And it's unfair. I mean, the guy's like 21, 22 years old. I think he'll be 22 this whole season. Still very young. The script has not been written for him yet, but some people think they already know the outcome of Lamar Jackson. On to the Browns at 9-7. I like their roster a lot, up and down. Of course, they added Odell Beckham Jr. They have Jarvis Landry, David Njoku already there. I believe Antonio Callaway is suspended. I kind of liked him coming in as their wide receiver 3, and now it's Rashard Higgins, I believe. So hopefully they'll be all right. They'll be fine with weapons. I love Nick Chubb this year. Kareem Hunt should be back week 10, I believe, but I think Nick Chubb's going to just, be incredible this year. Drafted him in like all my fantasy leagues, so I hope he's good. Their offensive line should be average. They did lose their right guard, Kevin Zeitler, who went to my Giants. He's a really good player, so that's, a pretty big loss, but I still like their offensive line. They should be fine. Their defensive line is scary. They have Myles Garrett, who I picked for Defensive Player of the Year in my last prediction video about the NFL. Sheldon Richardson's there. Sheldon Richardson's a former Jet, so I'm familiar with him because I live in the area. And a former Giant, Olivier Vernon, went to the Browns. Olivier Vernon, when he's healthy, very productive player, and a lot of Giants fans did not like him because he had a big contract. He didn't show up a lot. He was injured, but I'm telling you, when this guy's playing, Browns fans, he is good. He provides a lot of pressures, and you guys are going to like him if he plays for you. They have good corners. Denzel Ward, they have Greedy Williams, who they just drafted this year. Those guys should just keep continuing to get better and better. I wouldn't be shocked if they missed the playoffs, but this roster right now is good enough to make the playoffs, so that's why I put the Browns at 9-7. Next, I have the Steelers at 8-8, and I could be completely off about the Steelers. I kind of like them a lot. I mean, it's a good division, though, so someone has to go 8-8 and miss the playoffs. So Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, Jesse James all depart from the offense. A big key to this team this year is wide receiver Dante Moncrief and tight end Vance McDonald. Those guys have to stay healthy. I mean, those guys do have a bit of an injury history, more Moncrief than McDonald, but if these guys are only playing 6 to 8 games this year, that's not good. Ben Roethlisberger needs his weapons. If you told me Moncrief and Vance McDonald were each going to play 16 games, I'd probably have them over the Browns. That's how important they are to this team. They have one of the best offensive lines in football year after year. Believe they're ranked top 3 heading into this season. Their defense has a ton of talent. They have TJ Watt, Cameron Hayward. They have great pass rushers, even Stephon Tuitt's there. I saw him in a preseason game recently. He was just blowing the whole game up. They have Devin Bush, who looks really good in preseason. I mean, I wasn't crazy high on Devin Bush. I did like Devin White more, who went to Tampa Bay. We'll see how that plays out. But so far in the preseason, Devin Bush looks really good. They signed quarterback Steven Nelson from Kansas City. They have Joe Hayden there in the secondary as well. So the Steelers, they could win a division. It wouldn't shock me, but I just feel like the other rosters are more talented. I'm big on Lamar Jackson taking that next step, and I think they're just a more well-rounded team. But hey, it wouldn't shock me if the Steelers made the playoffs. In the basement, I have the Bengals at 4-12. I think it'll be a rough year for them. Their offensive line lost 2 starters already, one to retirement, and one was Jonah Williams, their first-round pick, who has a torn labrum. I like Jonah Williams a lot. I think once he gets back, he'll be fine, but they won't have him this year. AJ Green, who I liked a lot coming into this year, already injured, got hurt in the first practice. I have no idea when he's coming back. Reports are very mixed. Like, some people say halfway through the season. Some people say he'll miss 2 to 3 weeks. I have no idea. We'll see. It's definitely a prove-it year for Andy Dalton. I've seen his backup Brian Finley play against the Giants in the 3rd preseason game. Finley looked really good, and if Andy Dalton has a bad year, I think they might just give the job to Finley halfway through the year if the season's a wash, and we'll see. I mean, I don't think anything's guaranteed for Andy Dalton at this point. Their defense isn't that bad, and it should be able to create pressure. I think they have a good front 7. They do have a new head coach in Zach Taylor, who came from the McVay coaching tree, so we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of variables and unknown with this team, but we'll see. I'm not very sold on the Bengals. I think it's going to be a rough year offensively for them, so that's why I have them in last. For the AFC South, let's start with the Texans at 10-6. They have some issues with Jadeveon Clowney right now in a holdout. Doesn't want to play unless he gets a new contract. I don't know what's going to happen with that. It obviously would help if he was there, but there's no guarantees right now. Will Fuller is healthy right now, which is huge for this team. When Will Fuller is healthy, he is such a big piece of this team. Just an over-the-top option, and just creates a great weapon for Deshaun Watson. And Deshaun Watson was my MVP pick last video. I still stand by that. I think he'll be an MVP this year. The Texans will play in a lot of shootouts this year. They have a very tough schedule, at least for opposing offenses, and I think they will run up the score in most games. Deshaun Watson's in a great spot to put up some big numbers. Their offensive line is still not good, but Watson can disguise that. He's the type of guy that can just run out of the pocket and make throws on the run. He can take off when he needs to. I mean, if this was like Phillip Rivers or Eli Manning behind this line, I would not be high on this team at all, but I think Deshaun Watson can disguise most of that. Their defense was good last year, but Tyrann Mathieu left for the Chiefs, so they don't have him. I think they might give up a decent amount of points, but this offense with Watson, Hopkins, Fuller, even Duke Johnson now traded there, they're going to be able to put up enough points to win a lot of games. And this division now with Andrew Luck on isn't as good. I have them going 10-6. The Colts now at 8-8, so I think I had them at 9-7 or 10-6 or something like that last time. Now I have them at 8-8, so I don't think the Colts are going to suck this year. I still think they have a very good roster, very well-rounded roster. So just like everybody else, I have them I had them making the playoffs with a healthy Luck. Not anymore. Jacoby Brissett should perform better than 2017. I made a whole video about that. If you're interested in Jacoby Brissett, go ahead and watch that. Their offensive line and skill positions are still very good. They have young players that are talented on defense, Darius Leonard and Malik Hooker. They even added some guys in the draft. They have Rock Ya-Sin, Ben Banagoo, who I was interested in for the Giants because they needed pass rushers. They added former Chiefs veteran Justin Houston, who had over 9 sacks each of the last 2 seasons. Still a productive player at 30 years old, I believe. And as I said, Jacoby Brissett is going to be better with a better team around him. I mean, last time Jacoby Brissett got traded to the Colts, he had 8 days to prepare. He got traded on September 2nd or September 3rd. It was a very late trade. And I guess once the Colts realized, hey, Andrew Luck might not come back, they made that trade. So now he has under a year or over a year in the Frank Reich system. He should be better. And losing Luck means they will lose a couple of extra games that are tight in the fourth quarter. That's why I have them going from 10-6 to 8-8. I think 8-8 is fair. They could exceed that. They could do worse than that. I think there's a better chance they exceed that. And maybe Jacoby Brissett's better than all of us think he is, but we'll see. For the Jaguars, 7-9. I'm not completely sold on them this year. Their leading tackler the last 2 years, Telvin Smith, is taking the year off. I mean, I don't know why. I forget. I mean, it came out a while ago, but he's taking the year off, so that's a pretty big hit for their defense. They do have some ridiculous pass rushers on this team, though. They should live up to that Saxonville name once again. They added Josh Allen from Kentucky, who fell to them at number 7 overall, which no one saw coming. A lot of people thought Josh Allen was a lock to go to the Raiders, and then they took Cleveland Farrell, which shocked everybody. So now Josh Allen's a member of the Jaguars, and they're a great defense. The offensive line is hard to completely trust, but Andrew Norwell, who they signed to a big contract 2 years ago, had an off year, but had an injury last year as well. He should be better. They added Jawan Taylor, who was like one of the top-ranked tackles, maybe the ranked top-ranked tackle in the draft this year. They got him in the second round, I believe. I'm not sure why he fell. Could have been off-the-field stuff, but he's slated as their starting right tackle. Nick Foles is obviously better than Blake Bortles, and a lot of this team's success rides on Nick Foles and how good he is, and Leonard Fournette. Can Leonard Fournette stay healthy, stay on the field? Some wide receivers are going to have to step up, and maybe one of them has a breakout for this team. I think D.D. Westbrook has the best chance of doing so, but there's a lot of other guys that can do that. On to the Titans at 6-10. So the thing I don't like about the Titans is their quarterback position. The Marcus Mariota pick, 2nd overall in 2015, is just looking worse and worse by the year. I mean, I like their defense. They had Jarrell Casey, Kelvin Byard, Wesley Woodyard. They have Malcolm Butler, rookie Jalen Ferguson, who might play at some point coming off the ACL injury. Not positive. I mean, it depends. If they're competitive, they might rush him back. But if they're not competitive and go 6-10 as I expect, he might not play at all this year. So they're going to, try to have the ground and pound attack. They're going to try to ride Derrick Henry as much as they can. I don't even know if Derrick Henry's healthy right now. He did have a bit of an injury going on. He'll probably play week 1, but we'll see. If Henry is either hurt or ineffective, which is the more likely outcome than him having the, in December, Derrick Henry had a ridiculous month. I think the outcome of him getting injured or ineffective is more possible than him rushing for 1,800 yards this year or whatever he was projected for. And I think they don't have the offensive firepower to keep up with most teams, which is why I have them at 6-10. On to the AFC West. First, I have the Chiefs at 11-5. I really like the move for Frank Clark this offseason. I think he's an improvement from Dee Ford. I mean, it's not that much of an improvement, but he's an improvement nonetheless. Him and Chris Jones will be very disruptive together. I mean, you can't forget about Chris Jones, who's still there. They did lose cornerback Steven Nelson, who, as I said, went to the Steelers before. They released Eric Berry and Justin Houston, so they lost those guys. They added Tyrann Mathieu, who I said was with the Texans last year. They have him now. They have Kendall Fuller at a cornerback position as well. So outside of that, I mean, it's really hard to trust other people on this defense, but it doesn't matter because they have Andy Reid at head coach, Patrick Mahomes, the MVP of last year at quarterback, and they will thrive once again. So I don't think Mahomes is throwing for 50 touchdowns again, but if he throws for 38 to 42 to 45 touchdowns around there, still a fantastic year. I just think last year it was ridiculous. I don't think anyone's ever replicated a 50 touchdown season in the NFL. I think it's only happened like 2 or 3 times anyway. And then next year, no one ever got it again. So I'd be very surprised if he were to throw for 50. Tyreek Hill got off the hook, avoided the suspension. They have Sammy Watkins, who right now is healthy, I believe. Travis Kelce, still the best tight end in football. Not much of an argument there. So I have the Chiefs at 11-5 because of their offense mostly. The Chargers I have at 9-7. So last video I had the Chargers missing the playoffs, but now I'm going to spoil it. I have them in because of the Andrew Luck retirement. So, I think Derwin James, one of the better safeties in football, we saw it last year in his rookie year. He will be out until at least week 8. He's on the IR now. That really sucks for them. Big loss. Joey Bosa played in 7 games last year. He needs to stay on the field. Melvin Ingram is still there as well on defense, so they have 2 guys right there that can get to the quarterback. Their linebacker core, they're added Thomas Davis from the Panthers, who's pretty darn old, but he can still play. And they have Denzel Perryman there as well. Their secondary does have nice players. Casey Hayward's there. Desmond King, who had a really nice year as a slot receiver, he's still there as well. They added guys like Jerry Tillery from Notre Dame, Nasir Adderley, a safety in the draft, who have potential to be very good NFL players. And I think this offense will be fine without Melvin Gordon, whether he's there or not there. I'm on team like running back doesn't matter too much. I mean, I know people have different stances on that, but Melvin Gordon, I feel they can make up for him with Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson. I feel like they're good enough. When Melvin was out last year, they were fine, whether it was Eckler carrying the ball or Justin Jackson, so they'll be fine. The offensive line needs to play like they did last season. That's the one thing that could ruin their season, I feel like, is the offensive line. Obviously, Phillip Rivers is not a mobile quarterback. If they don't have an offensive line, then, they could be screwed, but I think that's the one thing that can ruin their season. I love them getting Hunter Henry back. Don't want to forget about him, so having him back is huge. Onto the Broncos at 6-10. They move on from Case Keenum to Joe Flacco in the offseason, have a nice running back tandem of Phillip Lindsay, Royce Freeman. Wide receiver is interesting for them. They have Courtland Sutton, who could make a big step in year 2. Emmanuel Sanders coming off the Achilles injury in December, already back and playing. Rookie Noah Fant had a really good receiving career at Iowa, was a first-round pick this year. The offensive line should be pretty good. They added Dalton Reisner in the draft to play guard. I think he was a tackle in college, but now he's playing guard. He should be fine. I liked him. I watched him a lot. The Denver defense is still really good. They added players. They have Vic Fangio, who was the Bears defensive coordinator last year. Vic Fangio is now their head coach. They have Bradley Chubb entering year 2. Von Miller is still there. They added Bryce Callahan, who was with the Bears last year, so he reunites with Vic Fangio. They know each other. Chris Harris is still there, playing at a high level. I think it's a contract year for him. I just don't believe in Joe Flacco enough for this team to make the playoffs. I mean, Joe Flacco kind of fell off recently, I'm not going to lie. He was benched last year for Lamar Jackson, obviously. And I do like Drew Lock coming out of college. I mean, I think he's going to be fine in the NFL. I don't know if he's going to play this year, but I'll be looking out for that. I hope he gets a shot. I think he's injured right now. I don't know how bad it is, but I do hope Drew Lock gets to play at some point. And also at 6-10, I don't know which one's 3 and 4. It doesn't really matter. They're both 6-10. I have the Raiders. The Raiders are interesting. I watched Hard Knocks. Will Antonio Brown stay sane for the entire season? That's a question. Will Derek Carr be the 2016 version or the last 2 years version? I don't know. There are many questions about them offensively, but I really like the running back Josh Jacobs, their first rounder. The offensive line added Richie Incognito and Trent Brown, so maybe the offensive line's good this year. I don't know. The defensive, they just released Brandon Marshall, a linebacker who used to be with Denver. Kind of a surprising cut, but hey, he's a free agent now. They have exciting players like 4th overall pick Cleveland Farrell. That surprised everybody. Jonathan Abrams at safety and Carl Joseph at safety. So they have a very young safety tandem that could be very good for the next decade if they both work out. That's exciting. There are some pretty good veterans on defense as well, like Tahir Whitehead, Vontaze Burfict, Darryl Worley at cornerback. So they do have some guys. And I just don't think they have enough talent to make the playoffs, especially in this division with the Chargers and the Chiefs. But if Carr plays like the 2016 MVP candidate version, there's a chance, but I'm just not expecting it. On to the NFC now. I'm starting with the Eagles at 11-5. This whole prediction, of course, rides on the health of Carson Wentz. We should all know that. So if Wentz can play like an MVP once again when he's right, then this will be right. I think the Eagles will be first place in this division. They have a great offensive line. They have one year after year. They even have rookie left tackle Andre Dillard on the bench. That's how stacked they are offensively at the offensive line position. They have a lot of decent running backs. They have Miles Sanders, who will probably start at some point. Not right away. I think Jordan Howard will start the season as a starting running back, but eventually Miles Sanders will be their starter. The best tight end duo in the league with Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. Best duo in football right there. I think Dallas Goedert is going to do some really nice things this year. He had a nice rookie year, but it's going to be even better in his second year. They haven't really made many changes on defense. They replaced Jordan Hicks with Zach Brown. Zach Brown formerly with the Redskins. So, I mean, it's kind of a lateral move right there. Jordan Hicks went to the Cardinals. I'll get to them later, of course. So, the weakness for this team is cornerback. They have Ronald Darby. He needs to stay healthy, but I mean, they just need to have better talent at that cornerback position. I think they can get by with it, but you wish they had better players there. And they're just, they're a stacked roster up and down aside from that secondary. And, they're good at the important positions like both lines and quarterback. I think they'll be fine. And as I said, as long as Wentz is healthy, they're going to win this division probably. On to the Cowboys, and I have them at 8-8, which is kind of a hot take, but most people have them at 9, 10, 11 wins. I'm saying 8-8 and still second in this division. Zeke is ready to miss games at this point, which is pretty concerning. The contracts for the big players on offense is still going to be looming the entire season, not even off season at this point, during the regular season. I'm not sure if they're going to get anything done with Zeke. There's no contract extension for Amari Cooper or Dak Prescott yet, so not sure what their plan is. And is Dak Prescott good enough to succeed without a star running back? I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, Dak Prescott, I think, can be exposed this year if he doesn't have his star running back behind him. I don't think Dak's anything better than an average quarterback. Sorry, I'm sure most people would agree, not Cowboy fans, but I think most people would agree with that. And this defense is going to be really good for Dallas, but I just have the bad vibes on offense that scare me. I mean, they will be a top defense this year. Their front seven's crazy, so they'll be fine there. And, I think their defense is going to carry them, but that's just not a philosophy to win in 2019. We all know this is an offensive league, so I think having your defense carrying you is not going to work, so that's why I have the Cowboys at 8-8. My New York Giants at 7-9, so as I always say, it's a transition year for this team. The main focus will be, when does Daniel Jones take over for Eli Manning? That's the main thing. I've always said I think it's Week 7 versus Arizona. The Giants would have 10 days off at that point to get him ready, so I think Week 7 is the target date for Daniel Jones, unless the Giants for some reason start out on fire, but I'm not expecting that. The Giants will have a bunch of fun, young defensive players. They will make mistakes, but they'll be fun to watch and watch them improve. They will have some offensive players to watch out for. Evan Engram, big year for him, hopefully, needs to stay healthy. If he plays all 16, I expect big numbers for him. We all know Saquon Barkley. He might put up better numbers than last year. This offensive line for the Giants got much better. I think Saquon Barkley is going to have possibly 1,500 plus rushing yards this year, probably double-digit touchdowns once again. He'll be crazy. And the defense, as I said, they have young players. Jabril Peppers, DeAndre Baker, Dexter Lawrence, B.J. Hill, Lorenzo Carter. They can improve throughout the season, and then by 2020, maybe the Giants can make a run at the playoffs, especially if Daniel Jones is the real deal. On to the Redskins. I have them at 5-11. That's pretty low, looking at it, but this is a good division, so, I don't really know what else I can do for them. They did name Case Keenum their starter. You don't love seeing that. And, of course, Dwayne Haskins will take over, I think, sooner rather than later. I think he'll take over in like 3 or 4 weeks. I don't think this whole Case Keenum thing is going to last for a while. They have decent players at skill positions. They have, of course, Darius Geis, who could be really good. I like this college tape. He needs to stay healthy. He just hasn't been able to, but he will play in the regular season, it looks like. Adrian Peterson is 34, I think, still around. They have Chris Thompson at receiving back. Jordan Reed, who just suffered his 7th concussion. This guy, I hope he knows what he's doing. It's pretty. I don't know the word, but it's not good to see someone get 7 concussions. I hope he's all right. They have Paul Richardson at receiver, Josh Doxson at receiver, Trey Quinn at receiver. Don't know which one of those guys steps up. Josh Doxson's been a disappointment since he's been drafted there. And I like their offensive line if Trent Williams plays. If not, and if they're forced to play Eric Flowers at left tackle, you pretty much should just call it a season and not even play Dwayne Haskins, because he probably would get hurt. And as a Giants fan, I do know Eric Flowers very well. I've watched him a lot, and nothing good comes out of that. So the defense might not be that bad, and it might surprise some people. I think their front seven's really good. They added Landon Collins. They have Josh Norman in the secondary already, so I think that'll help. And like the Giants, it'll be a transition year for this team where they go from veteran quarterback in Case Keenum to the young guy, first rounder in Dwayne Haskins. So we'll see what the Redskins do. They might win more than 5 games. It wouldn't shock me. I think they can win 6, 7. If they win more than 7, I'd be kind of surprised. But I think 5-11 is kind of fair. I'm kind of lowballing them a little bit, but someone's got to have a low record in this division, so I picked them. To the NFC North now, and this was a very tough division, I'm not going to lie. The top 3 teams in this division was very tough. I think we all know the Lions are last. I'd be surprised if it's not that. So first I have the Packers at 10-6. So just like Carson Wentz, a healthy Aaron Rodgers is the difference in this division. Rodgers has had 2 bad years in a row with injuries, so I hope he's healthy this year. New coach Matt LaFleur can't be any worse than Mike McCarthy. I was not a Mike McCarthy guy. I thought he was pretty bad and his plays were pretty predictable, which is why Aaron Rodgers changed a lot of them and caused the whole turmoil and stuff like that. Aaron Jones should have a breakout year at running back. Another reason why I don't like Mike McCarthy. He barely played Aaron Jones. So I think, there should be a breakout for him this year at running back. We know Devontae Adams is great at wide receiver, but who else steps up? Is it Geronimo Allison? Is it Marquez Valdez-Scantling? Is it Jimmy Graham? I doubt Jimmy Graham, but who else is going to step up for this team? Obviously, Randall Cobb left for the Cowboys, so they don't have him anymore. Not like he did anything anyway the last few years, but There's still empty spots there at receiver. The Packers added a ton of defensive talent this year, so I think they'll be much improved there. Should be a top half defense in the league. I mean, I went over in previous videos their defense. I think it was in the top 5 breakout teams for me. So if you want a more in-depth look at the Packers, go watch that video. But it should be a good defense, and obviously no more Mike McCarthy is always good news for Green Bay. I don't know how good Matt LaFleur is. I mean, a lot of people didn't like that signing, but we'll see if it pays off. The Bears at 9-7, so we all know they have a top 3 defense in the league, so there's really not much to go over there. My problem with this team is Mitch Trubisky. He's the definition of a system quarterback, and Matt Nagy got everything he could out of him last year, I think. A quarterback entering year 3 should be on the rise, but I just don't buy into it with Mitch Trubisky. Their O-line is probably top 10 in the league, so their running backs like rookie David Montgomery and Tariq Cohen, they should play well, but who else can step up? Can Anthony Miller at receiver have a good year too? I mean, he was getting comparisons to Antonio Brown coming out of college. Can tight end Trey Burton, who they spent a lot of money on, improve in year 2 on this team? We'll see. There needs to be some guys to step up at receiver, and obviously their quarterback, Mitch Trubisky. I mean, I hope he proves me wrong, but I just have not seen enough for him to convince me that he's a franchise quarterback down the road. For the Vikings, I have them at 8-8, and last time I had them making the playoffs. I've changed my mind on this team. I just, the whole Kirk Cousins not winning big games thing, it just got to me. I just, I don't like the guy. He does not win the big games. We see it year after year. There's just a large enough sample size at this point to know that Kirk Cousins is not a good big game quarterback. So why should I think he'll even make the playoffs? Dalvin Cook, the running back, if he's healthy, will have a huge year. We saw him in the preseason with like an 85-yard run. He looked phenomenal there. The offensive line's pretty sketchy for this team, so I don't think it'll be great. The defense is always good. I mean, they have pass catchers on this team, like Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, but after them, who do they have, really? I mean, they don't really have a wide receiver 3 you can rely on. I'm sure Laquan Treadwell's still there. Some Giants fans wanted Laquan Treadwell. I don't really want him, so I'll pass on that. But Kyle Rudolph's still there. Irv Smith Jr., just drafted out of college, is there, so we'll see what they can do in the receiving game. But, there's not really a wide receiver 3 to count on this team so far, so that's a bit of a concern. So as I said, defense should be really good. Their defensive line is loaded. It has been the last few years. Xavier Rhodes had a down year last year. He needs to play better. Harrison Smith's still there at free safety, so they'll be fine in the secondary, I think, as long as Xavier Rhodes plays up to his standards. I have the Lions at 5-11. Do we even know if Matt Patricia is a good head coach? I mean, I'm not really sold on that. I mean, who knows? It's one of the Belichick coaching trees that could go wrong type of thing. Matt Stafford played with a back fracture last season, so he should be better. We'll see. Their offensive coordinator, Darrell Bevel, loves to run the ball based off his history. And with Stafford having these good weapons and stuff and him being healthy, I don't think that's the correct philosophy, but we'll see. Kerryon Johnson's a talented running back, so it could work. But if I'm an offensive coordinator and I have a Matt Stafford, a Marvin Jones, a Kenny Golladay, Danny Amendola was just signed there. TJ Hawkinson at tight end. They just signed Jesse James as well. Do I really want to run the ball more than I pass it in 2019? I don't think so, but that's just me. TJ Lang did retire, but their offensive line's still pretty talented, so I'm really not concerned there. The Lions always have an average defense, so it really depends how the offense performs. And their defense, they do have a really good defensive line in my opinion. They added Trey Flowers, I think it was, from the Patriots. They paid him a lot of money. And Snacks Harrison's there as well, so they have a good defensive line. And of course, Darius Slay is their top cornerback, one of the top corners in the league. So they have him, of course. It's always nice to have a top corner, but I just don't think they're going to have the offensive firepower to be a good team, which is why I have them at the 5-11 record. For the NFC South, always a fun division. I have the Saints at 10-6 for first place. I'm a tiny bit concerned about the Saints. Obviously, Drew Brees, after the Week 13 Cowboys game, did not look the same. I hope his age isn't getting to him or his arm's tired or something like that. I hope he comes back looking rejuvenated, and I'll be confident about this team once again. Replacing Mark Ingram with Latavius Murray, kind of a lateral move in my opinion. I mean, Latavius is a bit faster, and I think Mark Ingram is more of a downhill type runner, but they're both basically the same backs talent-wise. Who steps up as the third receiving option? We know Michael Thomas is going to get his. We know Alvin Kamara is going to get his in the receiving game, but who's the third guy? They have Traquan Smith in his second year, I believe it is. Ted Ginn's there. They signed Jared Cook from the Raiders, who had a nice year for the Raiders last year, but then again, he was the only target in Oakland, so how impressive was it? Their defense should still be good. I mean, Sheldon Rankins probably will miss at least the first few weeks. The defensive tackle coming off an Achilles injury, I believe. I think that was suffered against the Giants actually last year, now that I'm remembering it. But speaking of the Giants, former Giants first-round pick Eli Apple is the second cornerback on this team. That's a little scary. I've watched enough of that guy to know he's not that good. He was better on the Saints last year, I'll admit that, but I remember watching the Thursday night game, the Dallas one I was talking about. He was getting exposed on one of the drives and did not look good at all. But Saints fans think he's playing well, so we'll see. But the defense should be good enough for this team. We'll see. I mean, Cam Jordan's still there, Marcus Davenport. They should be fine defensively, and as long as Drew Brees is not looking like the post-Week 13 Drew Brees, they'll be fine this year. The Falcons I have at 9-7. Very unfortunate season for them in 2018 with all the injuries. Keanu Neal, Deion Jones, Devonta Freeman barely played last season. Their offensive line is a little concerning. I watched them in preseason against the Jets. They looked horrible that game. I don't know what they did the rest of the game, so I'm only speaking on one game, so don't take that pretty lightly. Of course, Matt Ryan should be fine along with Julio Jones. Calvin Ridley's in year 2 now. They should be fine. I'm not really in on Devonta Freeman this year. If you watch my fantasy football videos, you know I'm against Devonta Freeman. I don't trust him to stay healthy all season. And then who's behind him? You have like Ito Smith. I like Quadri Olesen out of Pitt, so we'll see what happens there. But hey, if Devonta Freeman plays all 16 games, that's good for them, so we'll see. Replacing offensive coordinator Steve Sarkisian is a big move for them. Believe Dirk Cutter, the former Buccaneers coach now, is their OC, so that can't be any worse than what Sarkisian was doing there. He was terrible. Defensively, the Falcons have had a really bad year in 2018, but they'll be better. I mean, there's a lot of talent on this defense. There's holes at the number 2 cornerback position, and Vic Beasley, please step up. I mean, he needs to do what he did back in 2015, I think it was, or 2016, when he had a really big season. He needs that again. It's been an off couple of years for him, so I do like their talent defensively, but some of the key guys need to step up for sure. I have the Panthers at 7-9. The question is, can Cam stay healthy? He suffered a minor injury, I think it was a sprained ankle, in the preseason game against the Patriots, so he should be fine, but who knows? I mean, Cam Newton definitely has an injury history, had the shoulder surgery in last January, so he's coming back from that. Should be fine, though, for the regular season. They have young receivers like DJ Moore, I think is a former first or second round pick. I think he was a first round pick last year, and Curtis Samuel, another pretty high pick. I think he was second round 2 years ago. So they have young receivers that are going to be fun to watch. Can Greg Olsen play all year? I mean, that's a big question. I've seen some practice highlights of Greg Olsen. He looks good in practice, but he's had so many foot injuries the last 3 years. Don't know how it'll be, but we'll see. I wish him the best. He's obviously one of the better tight ends of this past decade. Signing Matt Paradis is a big move for them at center, so I think, the rest of this offensive line needs to stay healthy. That's a big thing for them. They have good talent there. They have Darrell Williams, I think, is going to play left tackle for them. He missed a lot of games last year. He needs to stay healthy, but I think the health on this offensive line, as long as it's there, they'll be fine. The defense added some interesting names like Gerald McCoy, the former Buccaneer, Trey Boston, the safety, and Bruce Irvin from Seattle, I think it was. A lot of the defense depends on health as well, so I mean, the Panthers are a team that needs to stay healthy. I mean, I don't expect it. There's a lot of guys with injury concerns on that team, but if all of their key players play a majority of the season, they could be a nice surprise team this year, so we'll see. I was definitely more on them last video than now, but, we'll see. It wouldn't shock me. Just like the Steelers, it wouldn't shock me if they had a good season, and I'm underestimating them. The Buccaneers, another team that could have a good season. They're at 6-10 for me. I love the Bruce Arians hire for this team. Jameis Winston's an improve-it year. Can he prove he's a franchise quarterback? They have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, O.J. Howard at receiver. Howard's obviously a tight end, still a receiver. They should have great years. All big guys for Jameis Winston to throw to. They're all very talented. The offensive line is a concern. They had a very rough preseason against the Browns in one of the games. And as well as the running back position, who's playing running back for them? Is it Peyton Barber? Is it Ronald Jones, who looks like a flat-out bust at this point? There's some guy named like Dare Ogwood. You guys know what I'm talking about. Buccaneers fans know what I'm talking about. Who's supposed to be a third down back for them. I don't have that name recognized yet or memorized yet. Their defense defensive line is pretty nasty when it's healthy. I mean, they do have Ndamukong Suh, who was just added there, Vita Vea, who might miss a few weeks to start the season, and Jason Pierre-Paul, who might miss like 6 to 8 games with a neck injury. Don't know when he's coming back. He's a former Giant as well, so I like myself some Jason Pierre-Paul. Their linebackers got better, adding Devin White. Of course, they have Levante David there as well. I'm a big Devin White fan. I think he'll end up being a really good linebacker. Patrick Willis comparisons coming out of college. I think he'll be a good player eventually. I don't know. He might be a little raw because he started off as a running back, made a late transition to linebacker, I think once he got to college or something like that. So he's not like a linebacker his whole life. So give it some time, Bucs fans. Eventually, Devin White will be fine. It's a big year for Vernon Hargreaves in the secondary. That secondary is probably going to struggle a lot. But if Vernon Hargreaves, who apparently at camp's having a really good camp, then, he can turn this whole secondary around if he has an elite year and turns into one of the best corners in football. So we'll see what happens there. So the final division, finally, here we are, NFC West. I have the Rams at 12-4. The Rams should once again be one of the most dominant teams in football. Their 3 receivers are coming in healthy. I just saw a report recently that Cooper Kupp is timing better in his metrics coming back from the ACL injury before the ACL injury, so he's looking really good. And, of course, there's concerns with Todd Gurley's knee, but the reports have been positive so far, so we'll see. I don't expect him to get as much of a workload as he did last year. I think he'll put up like 75% of the numbers he did last year. They have Darrell Henderson there now. They have Malcolm Brown there as well, so there are other running backs they can go to, use more of a committee-type approach. They did lose a veteran guard, Roger Saffold, who was one of the best guards in football. He went to the Titans, so losing him sucks, but their offensive line's still above average, so they should be fine there. McVay knows what Goff likes, and they'll definitely put up a ton of points this year. They added some veterans on defense, Clay Matthews and Eric Weddle. Marcus Peters needs to have a better year at corner, and Aqib Talib, of course, needs to stay healthy. He's still one of the better cornerbacks when he's right. And, of course, they have the most dominant player in football, Aaron Donald, back-to-back Defensive Player of the Year, I believe, so he's still there. I have the Niners at 8-8, so this is a big year for Jimmy Garoppolo. Recently made a video about him. He played only 3 games last year. Jerick McKinnon's hitting the IR at running back, so can Tevin Coleman and Matt Breida carry the load? We'll see. Who steps up at wide receiver? That's been a big question for them so far in the preseason and training camp. They have Deebo Samuel, Dante Pettis, who's disappointed, according to reports, Marquise Goodwin, some other guys, Jalen Hurd. So they have George Kittle still, should be a beast this year, but don't expect the 1,400 yards. Once again, that's very hard to replicate. I think he'll make up for it in the touchdown department. He had only 5 touchdowns last year. George Kittle should score more than 5 touchdowns with 1,400 receiving yards. I don't even know how you do that, but he should have more touchdowns this year. I'm a big fan of this defensive line. It's pretty stacked. They have DeForest Buckner, Dee Ford, who they traded for, and then Nick Bosa, the rookie, 2nd overall pick, I believe. They have those 3 on the same defensive line, so it could be very dominant. The secondary, if healthy, can be very good as well. Jason Verrett, who is one of the most talented corners in football, can never stay healthy. But right now, he's slated as the 2nd cornerback next to Richard Sherman, who also had an Achilles injury a few years ago. He was fine last year, and they added Quan Alexander at linebacker. They gave him a pretty decent-sized contract, so I hope he plays well for their sake. They'll be fun, but I think the lack of weapons at receiver is going to hurt them a lot. And, I do think if there's an opportunity to trade for a receiver, then it could happen for them. I definitely could see the Niners trading for a receiver at some point this year, especially if they're competitive out the gate. I mean, if the Niners are serious about contending, I can see them trading for a receiver. Let's hypothetically say like the Bucs start off pretty bad and maybe Mike Evans gets traded to the Niners. I don't know. It's just a thought. Something like that could happen. It would not shock me. On to the Seahawks at 8-8. So the run-heavy Seahawks will probably do the same thing this year. We could see 200-plus carries from 2 individuals on this team, Chris Carson and Rashad Penny. I wish they let Russell Wilson, who is a top 5 quarterback in my mind, have more of an impact on the game. And who steps up at wide receiver after Tyler Lockett? I mean, they have David Moore and DK Metcalf, who are hurt right now. I don't even know if they're going to be ready for week 1. Who else is playing receiver for this team? I mean, that's definitely a concern, but they do love to run the football, so who really cares? The offensive line should be middle of the road. I mean, it was all right last year, better than previous years for sure during the Russell Wilson era, so their offensive line should be fine. Outside of Bobby Wagner, there really isn't a true superstar on this defense, but they have free agent Ezekiel Ansah, who should make a pass rushing impact for this team, hopefully. They do have a very young secondary that could surprise us, so we'll see what happens there. The Cardinals at 5-11. So the Cardinals, they'll be fun to watch. They'll be fast-paced, as we know with Cliff Kingsbury. I do think Kyler Murray will win Rookie of the Year this season, and the offense will succeed at the end of the day. The line is still really bad, but Kyler Murray's mobility helps a lot. If they stay healthy, the offensive line might surprise us. I like the whole Marcus Gilbert thing, the signing they had, and they have Justin Pugh who needs to stay healthy as well. So they do have some names there. They could be a good offensive line and surprise us. David Johnson needs to bounce back. He had an off year last year. I don't blame him for that. The offensive line was terrible. Christian Kirk, potential breakout this year. Larry Fitzgerald's still there. Andy Isabella's a rookie. They just signed Michael Crabtree, which is funny. There was a report that they signed him 2 weeks ago, then they didn't sign him, then they signed him again, so I think he's on the roster. No Patrick Peterson the first 6 games. That sucks. He's one of their best defenders, one of the best cornerbacks in football. Added guys like Jordan Hicks at linebacker, Terrell Suggs, and Zach Allen. So they do have some names on defense, and they'll have to play a big part if they're going to win over like 6 games this year. But I do have them at 5-11, so they'll be fun to watch. I think the Cardinals will move this thing in the right direction, but I ultimately think they'll go 5-11. So now on to the AFC playoffs. Hey AFC, we missed you. It's been a while. So let's start with the wild card. I have the Browns making it. They would play the Texans at home the way I have it. I would have the Texans advancing in that game. I think it'd be a pretty good one. I mean, maybe the Texans blow them out at home in Baker's first playoff game. I don't know. I think Baker would show up and have a nice game. Wouldn't shock me if the Browns won that game. I mean, who knows what they'll do this year, but I do have the Texans winning that one because they're home. I would have the Chargers at Ravens. I mean, I think that was a matchup last year. I think the Chargers won that game when they advanced to New England. This time I have Baltimore winning. You guys know I think Lamar Jackson's going to have a really nice year, so I have Baltimore winning that one. Let's go to the top now. So we have the Texans at the Patriots. Of course, I got to give the Patriots that one. I mean, they should win that. They'll definitely exploit the weak offensive line. Bill Belichick would definitely exploit this weak offensive line for the Texans. Doesn't matter how many points that this offense puts up or what kind of MVP year I think Deshaun Watson's going to have. That coaching staff's going to figure it out. And the Ravens at the Chiefs, I think, would be a very good game. They had a great game in KC last year, so just imagine what an improved Lamar Jackson could do. Maybe he even wins that game. Who knows? But I think the Chiefs are going to win that game and eventually go to the AFC Championship with the Patriots. It would be at New England because they play each other this year, and that game is in New England, so I do think the Patriots will beat the Chiefs, but it really depends on who wins that regular season game, of who would win the tiebreaker here, because I think I had them both at 11-5, so that's the way it played out for me. Game would be in New England, and surprisingly, I do have the Chiefs winning that game. I mean, I think the Chiefs get them back. They should have won it last year. I think this is Andy Reid's year. I hope this team is talented. They have the best quarterback in the football. The Patriots need to stop going to the Super Bowl at some point, so why not have it be this year? The Chiefs have the talent. Patrick Mahomes is going to be even better this year. I don't think he'll put up better stats, but he'll be more efficient and stuff like that. A year 3 quarterback compared to a year 2 quarterback, definitely a better improvement there, and he'll understand the game more. I like the Chiefs this year. I think they'll make the Super Bowl, and let's go on to the NFC now. NFC playoffs, we have the first wild card. Let's go with the Bears at Packers. Some in-division rivals and playoff matchups here. This would be a fun round if it actually happened. I would have Green Bay winning this game. I do think with the improvements that Green Bay made on defense, and as I said, I'm not a fan of Mitch Trubisky. I think if this game was at Chicago, I'd have it the other way around. I think I'd give it to Chicago, but with Green Bay with the better record and winning the division, they would be the host of this game, and I think Green Bay would advance to play the Rams. On to the bottom now, we have the Falcons at Saints. I like the Falcons a lot this year. I just think the Saints are a better overall team. As I said, a lot of it depends on how Drew Brees looks this year. I can't say that enough. If Drew Brees isn't that same guy that we're used to seeing, then not good for the Saints, to say the least. On to the divisional round, we have the Packers at Rams. I feel like that would be a very high-scoring game. I do think the Rams would take care of them, though. And then we have the Saints at Eagles. And this is a game that, last time I made this video, I had the Saints making it to the Super Bowl, I believe, or something like that. But as I said, my opinions on these teams have kind of changed over the last few weeks. You see a lot in preseason, you read a lot of stuff, and it changes your mind. This time I have the Eagles winning this game. It would probably be a very cold game. This is a dome team going to cold Philadelphia to play in a very harsh environment, and I do have the Eagles winning that game, and it's tough to say it as a Giants fan, but I'm trying to be, as accurate and honest as I can here. Then it would be the Eagles at the Rams. I don't know why I had the Rams at home. I think I had the Rams at 12 wins, Eagles at 11 wins. That's probably why it was like that. And I do have the Eagles winning that game. The Rams don't have the most loyal fans, obviously. I mean, if you're a Rams fan watching this is like no hate to you. It's just like there's a lot of general football fans that just happen to go to Rams games because they live in the LA area. Obviously it's the St. Louis Rams for a long time, so no hate on you guys, but I do have the Rams losing that game. They don't make it to back-to-back Super Bowls. I have it Eagles against Chiefs. That's the way I have it. A little Andy Reid payback time. Let's go to the Super Bowl now. So here we go, my Super Bowl prediction this year. This would be a cool narrative because obviously the coach of the Eagles, Doug Peterson, used to coach under Andy Reid, and Andy Reid used to coach the Eagles. So there would be a lot of cool storylines leading up to that. There's a lot of crap that the media would like, all that kind of stuff, but that's not why I picked it. Obviously, I think these two are most likely to go to the Super Bowl in my mind. So I do have the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl this year, and it's probably not a surprise. I'm definitely not going out on a limb here. I'm not picking picking my Giants to win the Super Bowl or something crazy like that. But I do think the Chiefs would win this game. Andy Reid has yet to win the big game. He got there in 2006, I think it was, with the Eagles. Speaking of the Eagles, I think it was 2006. They lost to the Patriots. I was in second grade, so I hardly remember that. But yeah, so I do have the Chiefs winning this game. I think it'd be a very good one. I think this game would actually be a really, really good Super Bowl. That's what we want. We don't want these blowout Super Bowl games. I think this would be a very fun one if it were to happen. Mahomes against Wentz, and Wentz would probably be in MVP form once again. So you're watching two great quarterbacks. You're watching you're watching two good offensive lines. You have good skill position players. Some really good tight ends going at it. Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert against Travis Kelce. And if you think I'm going to sit here and name the Chiefs' second tight end, you're kidding yourself because I don't know. But Travis Kelce's good enough for two people, so screw it. So that's my Super Bowl, and that's the conclusion of this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you made it this far, then yeah, I think you enjoyed it, hopefully. If you want me to make NFL videos during the season, week-by-week reactions, I'm definitely down for that. I'd probably do it on Monday nights or Tuesdays or something like that. That's something I'd be interested in doing. So if you enjoy this video, let me know. And if you enjoy my NFL content, let me know. And I'll definitely do that in the regular season for you guys. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time.